military base and the British base in Manama into play, as Bahrain supports Saudi Arabia and is a puppet of those Western regimes, and plus the European refugee crisis. This, on top of Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and Afghanistan, will make things a lot worse. And you look where Sana'a and the Red Sea are. I don't think the Djibouti regime being a Western puppet is wise at this time. They are allied with Turkey, they are allied with America, and basically when you look at the proximity and the fact that they're next to Somalia and Eritrea, you can understand that if they allow a Wahhabist enclave across the Gulf of Aden, it will come back to hit them and their physical security. So it is not wise for Ismail Omar Guelleh or Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed to be Western puppets, be it Obama or whoever takes over. It's not wise, and a Wahhabist enclave across the Gulf will come back to bite Djibouti. There's no doubt in my mind of this.
Thank you, Mícheál. Why the Saudi Arabia haven't been able to win the war so far until now? Tim, could you please answer me?
Well, Saudi Arabia pretends that it's part of a regional conflict. It's identified Iran as its principal regional enemy here, but this is a paranoia of a regime, a family that has no future in the region unless it has a political base. There is no real political base. It's difficult to talk about Saudi Arabia as a country because no other country calls itself after a family. And there's no roots in democracy. The army is unreliable. We've seen recently a letter by 10 Saudi generals to the rulers saying that they're very alarmed by the idea that Saudi was pretending to send the thousands of troops to Syria when they're already losing in Yemen. There's concern within the army that's being expressed, and this is difficult because it's such a authoritarian regime that those generals must be risking their lives to have that letter leaked out there. So there's really a great deal of insecurity within the Saudi monarchy, and they're of course alarmed that they're losing in Syria now, particularly with the very strong alliance that's been put together between Syria and Iran and Russia, and including Iraq. They're losing in Iraq also, which is a cause of alarm. Remember that ISIS was created initially in Iraq to stop the Iraqi government getting close to Tehran. Now that's backfired completely, and now they have this war. They gave some North American name, what was it, Decisive Freedom or something like that, in Yemen. They're losing on that front too. They're able to kill people. This is the problem, that they can't win in Syria. They're not winning in Yemen. They're starting to lose in Iraq, but they can still kill people, and that's the danger of these wars, really, that they have the capacity to kill people.
Exactly.
But politically speaking, the Saudis must be the most insecure of all of the administrations in the region because they have no real strong political base, and they're of course paranoid about their Al-Qaeda groups coming back to attack them also. We saw a recent attempt in the UAE about that. The UAE, the Emirates, has got a certain ambiguity about the groups they've been supporting there. Russia, of course, has played a very interesting diplomatic game there with the Gulf monarchies also, trying to woo them over. They've had some success with Jordan. They've been talking to Qatar. So the Saudis are really in a very fragile situation, and their main strength, of course, is that they've been the most useful tool to stir up sectarian conflict in the region, and they're backed in this by Britain and by the US and by France. But the moment that they're not a useful tool, they'll be abandoned too. So in a sense, there's an extreme paranoia in Riyadh, I believe, and it's not looking very good for them strategically. Unfortunately, it doesn't look very good for the people that they're attacking also, because, as I said, they can't really win in this region against nations that are reasonably coherent, and now that those nations are getting together, as in the case of Syria, but they can keep killing people. That's the appalling thing.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Tim. And Chris, anything to add?
Well, I agree with Tim, and the will of the Yemeni people can basically be testimonial to that. Nothing more, nothing less. Here we have Saudi Arabia heading towards bankruptcy, and still to this day, the poorest nation in the Middle East is resisting, and they're resisting cutting-edge technology here. It's quite phenomenal, the resistance there.
Yeah, thank you. Mícheál, what about you?
Well, I'd like to reiterate and emphasize Chris' point. This is a powerful monarchy financially, and they still haven't defeated what is the poorest country in the region. But as much as I'd like to be optimistic about al-Assad's fall, I don't think they're quite in the shambles or the state of deterioration that one might wish. They still have 185,000 troops there, but they're not going to win. It's going to be a quagmire, but I think they'll brazen it out until it's clear that they cannot win and make a surrender. But I still think al-Assad will remain in power through basically appeasing and ingratiating themselves to their allies with military power, such as Britain and America. But I can't see them winning in Syria. I can't see them winning in Iraq or Yemen. But at the same time, unless there is violent disturbances internally, I can't see al-Assad falling. And when I say domestic violence internally, I don't mean from Wahhabists like Al-Qaeda, Ansar al-Sharia, or ISIS. I mean from basically the people, not sectarian clerics with an army and an agenda, such as the one which brought them to power.
Thank you. Ali, could you please ask the next question?
Yes, of course. Well, the next
you.
question is basically about the what is considered as the laws or the rights which should be considered and followed in the war. For example, you should not, for example, bombard the civilians in a war, or you should not go for every kind of facility that is providing energy or water or electricity for people. So you should only focus on military targets in a war. But as you can see in this war, we have seen lots of bombard on civilian parts, on electrical grids and water tanks, and the houses, markets, and a single thing that you would see in this war is basically targeting civilians and those who are not directly involved in the war. So how can this be, interpreted based on the laws of the war? And would it be possible to prosecute such problems, such crimes, or it's just something that happens in every war and can be, somehow being totally ignored? So I would like to ask it first of all from Professor Tim.
Thank you, Ali. Yes, it's a difficult question. People think that international law means nothing sometimes because they see it being violated so much. As you've said, there have been well-publicised attacks on hospitals, airstrikes on hospitals,